Meredith Gorman here, and are you still not subscribed to Matt's channel? Well, if you're not, hit the subscribe button because he's giving out free picks each and every week. Hope you have a good rest of your day.
UFC 309 live from Madison Square Garden, the Mecca, guys. New York City. Jones versus Stipe. I'll be breaking down the main card like usual, provide free picks, leans, price talk, fades, and more. SystemSportsCapping.com or link.me/systemcapping to receive my client cards, personal plays, resume, client comments, subscription opportunities. Everything is over there. Go check it out if you haven't already. 29 and 13 pay-per-view cards run is on the line for 2024. That's 72%. Very happy with the UFC this year. Average line plus money, guys. Keep that in mind. No big favorite, minus 250, 300 here, like some of those people out there. Client card will be out tomorrow after weigh-ins. Could be before weigh-ins. I don't think I have any concerns on the scales here. So should be okay. This is a card of some big favorites. Some big favorites that I'll be talking about here shortly. May have to get creative on this one. But we've got a couple good fights to talk about. If you do think the Stipe and Jones fight isn't really a good fight, I would say no, it's more of like a gimmick style type of fight, fight that, will be interesting to see because you could technically say these obviously guys are two legends of the sport, right? But, at the end of the day, is it really a good fight that we're going to see? Probably not, but we'll talk about that shortly. Let's do a UFC Vegas 100 recap, guys. Let's do a recap. 2-0 card for myself and clients. We're all over Protas there. Expect him obviously to get his hand raised, most likely by a knockout as well. Didn't maybe expect the first round finish. Thought Magny, his durability was a little better than that. But Protas just caught him in the right spot, it looked like, because it didn't look like he hit him that hard. But he dropped him, knocked him out. Protas does have some heavy hands. He continues to prove that, right? Protas is going to be a big factor in this division. He passed the gatekeeper test in Magny. I do believe he should get a top 10 guy. Now, I know he called out Jack Madeleine. I think that's a little bit of a reach. Madeleine is very close to a title shot, right? So, I like the Jeff Neal call out. I think that's a great fight. I think Neal's, top 10, I would say. Maybe just outside of the top 10. Don't have the rankings in front of me here, but I think Protas versus Neal is a great step up for him, right? You go Neal to Magny. I think Neal's a little better than Magny at this point, so I think that's a good step up. Be patient, my fighting nerd, as they call it. Got a great camp over there. They're doing some big things. We'll actually talk about Rufi, who's in a fight here this weekend from the Fighting Nerds out of Brazil. Also on the Ritter and the under 2.5, which got there close, got there by a minute. So got a little lucky there with the submission by the Ritter. That's his 12th submission now in his MMA career. Very good grappler, and he was able to prove that against a very good grappler himself, and right against Mershard. And Mershard, very good grappler, has a lot of submissions himself, doesn't get submitted a ton. So it's a nice win for DeRitter in his debut. I'd like to see what is next for him. Shout out to everyone listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. I got a lot more listeners over there than the YouTube world these days. But if you still watch and listen on YouTube, hello. Thanks for doing so. Please leave a comment. Please like the video. It helps out as well. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify, you can do a review or rate it as well. Let's get into this card for you guys. Let's get right into this card. Like I always say, shop around. Have access to multiple sports books. Can't stress that enough. Prices are going to vary from book to book. Jones, minus 600. We're seeing it drop a little bit. There were some minus 700s out there, 750s. Best number I see is minus 600 on Jones versus Stipe, plus 450. Be a big price for a good reason, right? We haven't seen Stipe fight since 2021, guys. And he got KO'd in the second round versus Francis. No shame there, losing to Francis, getting knocked out, but he just didn't look great. Didn't look great in that fight. Jones also, not as active as he used to be as well. Like, he only has one more fight in that time span, right? And that was against Gane. He looked great. Looked great at heavyweight. Just took down Gane, where he knew that was the weakness of him, and was able to finish and submit him very quickly in round 1. Not many people ask for this fight, right? It's not a fight, like I mentioned, it's more of a gimmick style fight. It's not a fight that, I'm overly excited to watch. I'm excited to see, both legends. Love seeing Jones back in there. But the matchup just doesn't excite me a ton. I talk a lot about Aspinall, right? Aspinall is the big talk around this card. Obviously, he's the backup fighter for this card. Don't think he'll get in, but a lot of talk about Jones ducking him. Doesn't want to fight Aspinall. I believe Aspinall is the best heavyweight right now, and the most worthy to fight John Jones. It's probably John Jones' worst matchup, guys. Right? Because he's not going to be, listen to this, he's not going to be able to just take down Aspinall at will and submit him. Right? That is a very low probability. Could he keep it on the feet, use his kicking game? Yeah, he could. Right? Aspinall is good boxing, but Jones could play a distance game. Right? And just, look good on the feet, use his kicking. Not as fast at heavyweight, I get that. But he does have the experience in there. So I think it would be a great matchup if these two fought. Now, I get why Jones doesn't. Let me give you the argument of why Jones doesn't want to fight, right? I think at his point of his career, he's older now. He wants more of the bigger fights, easier fights, more, fights that will suit his needs and his matchup, right? Like this fight, he's calling out Pereira. Big fight, so I'll give him credit for that. However, he should be able to just take down Pereira, right? He should be able to out-wrestle him and maybe find a submission in that fight. He's not going to stand and bang with Pereira. So I think he's more selecting and picking fights where it kind of makes sense for him. And I get it, right? Tom, obviously the younger, hungry guy. But, but at some point, Jones was that younger, hungry guy moving up the division, and guys had to fight him. So you can look at it that way too and say Jones is ducking Tom. And, I wouldn't call you crazy for that. I see an argument on both sides, but I definitely see why Jones does not want to fight Aspinall at this point of his career. He's the GOAT at the end of the day. He's picking who he wants to fight at this point of his career. That's how I kind of look at it. But yeah, you can definitely call him a duck for doing so. Talking about why John wants Stipe. Obviously, Stipe, best heavyweight of all time, no arguing that. He's just not active. He's 43. Hasn't fought for over 3 years, guys. Just doesn't do much currently if he gets to win. Everyone's thinking he should win this fight. It does nothing for him. Now, going back on the resume and see you have a win over Stipe, sure. But when you see at the time and when he beat him, it just doesn't really do much in my opinion. Right? Stipe's been firefighting and spending time with his kids as of late. So obviously he's training, guys. He's getting ready for this fight, but how motivated is it just a payday type of fight here for him? How much is he really going to bring to this fight? Jones should be quicker in there, has the better grappling, and I would say probably wrestling too at this point of his career. Stipe's age, you expect Stipe to be a lot slower in there than John, right? John, we know can take down. John, we know his takedown defense is excellent at 95%, so Stipe's not taking him down. Stipe just wants to stand and bang and maybe, hopefully, catch John on the feet. But John's never been finished, and we know how durable he is. So where does Stipe win this fight, guys? The only path, in my eyes, is he catches him with a shot. And at 43, Jones never getting knocked out, never losing a fight. What are the odds, guys? What are the odds, right? Could this fight go 5 rounds? I doubt it. The only way it does is just like a slow, boring style heavyweight fight. right? There are takedowns. Takedowns aren't successful, or the takedowns, he gets Stipe down, doesn't get a submission. On the feet, it's just slow, no big shots landed. It is possible it goes 5 rounds. Just these guys being older, not too sure how durable Stipe is at this point of the career. I kind of have a hard time seeing how this goes. Obviously I do expect John to win this fight. Not an easy bet. You do have to, look at an outcome or prop style, but I do have a client play on this fight. Most likely may fit in a small parlay for me this weekend. Co-main, Oliveira minus 250 versus Chandler plus 200. We've seen this one before. We got a rematch from 2021, guys, and it was a wild one, fun one, right? Fireworks when these two fight. Chandler had him in the first round. Had a shot. Even Chandler had a shot. Even Charles Oliveira had a shot with a submission. Chandler was able to reverse it, hurt him on the feet, and then Charles just comes back, right? In round 2, gets the finish by TKO. What a tough few years it's been for Chandler. I feel for this guy. Chasing Conor McGregor around and hoping for the big payday. And McGregor just played him. I feel bad for the guy, right? You have to. Obviously lost money over that time. He did get paid for the Ultimate Fighter, I'm sure. So I'm sure they probably paid him there pretty good. And he obviously has sponsors. I'm sure he does other stuff outside the ring. But come on. He definitely lost money. Mike wants to be in there fighting. Both these guys' styles, right? Fun to watch. Both will come out looking for finishes right away, right in the first round. Both guys will come in reckless at times too, right? That's why, betting this fight can sometimes be a flip of a coin. But if we look at it a little more, I will lean more on the Oliveira side. What will Chandler look like after this 2 years too, right? He's been off for a while, guys. Just thinking about Conor McGregor, how's the mental game going to be? There's a lot of things to factor in here on Chandler. Right, already lost to Charles as well. Right, so there's just a little more unknowns with Chandler on the layoff. The mental side of it, a lot to factor in here. The way Charles fights, though, it is dangerous and scary, right? He goes in, he's not scared to get hit. He'll take punishment, so it's always scary there. He could get caught, of course, right? But I do believe Charles has more pass to win this fight. He could obviously knock him out, TKO, submission. He could even win this fight by decision. I have more pass for Charles to win this fight. We've seen Charles put up a good fight versus Arman recently, just in April, split decision. We know how good Arman Tuzarian is. Split decision, a loss back just in April. Charles obviously the more active guy as well. Since 2021, Chandler's only 1-3 in the UFC, guys. Right, Chandler's more of a guy to watch for excitement. Always live because the way he fights. But he's also, not as durable as people think, right? The only win, guys, out of this 1-3 stint was against Tony Ferguson, who I could beat up at this point, right? So there's not a ton of confidence here on the Chandler side. So the only way I could look would be Oliveira in some capacity this week. May make my client card in some way, maybe via outcome. But Charles should get on the client card this week somehow. It should be a fun one to watch. Even if it doesn't, I'll be excited to watch this fight from a fan standpoint, guys. Bo Nickel minus 1,200 versus Craig plus 700. Look at this price. Bo Nickel fights are almost impossible to bet, especially on the money line. You got to take shots with outcomes if you're going to bet Bo Nickel fights these days, right? You have to expect Nickel to obviously win this fight. I think it's a good matchup for him. Could it be his toughest test yet? Sure. Just because of Craig's experience, and he can be dangerous at times with his kicking game and obviously submission game as well. Right, it's just unbettable. Even if you take Bo Nickel just by any sort of finish, it's minus 650, guys. That's how heavily favored he is in this one. But here's the issue, right? I believe Nickel could just beat him anywhere. 37% takedown defense for Paul Craig, guys. One of the worst in the UFC. Very easy to take it down. Now, he could be dangerous off his back. We've seen it multiple times. But Bo's going to understand that. And Bo does have good grappling himself. We're going to be very strong on top. Right, so I have it very low odds that Craig pulls off a submission off his back. Right? on Bo Nickel. He's going to expect that. That's going to be his only path to win this fight. The only path for Paul Craig to win this fight. I'll give him 2, but one more of a longer shot. A submission off his back, just very low odds, guys. Very low odds. Even though we've seen him do it before, but against lesser competition, right? And I guess you could say his kicking game at times is fairly solid. He has some nice kicks. He could possibly land a big kick on Bo, but again, very low odds, guys. I just got to give you a couple paths that I can look at there, right? You know, if we look at the outcomes here, narrow it down to submission or TKO KO, you know, submission at plus 187, a little bit of value there, but you're hoping it goes in that type of direction, right? Paul Craig only been submitted twice. Very good grappler, right? The TKO and KO at minus 150, not a terrible price. That I could see, you know, happening maybe a little more. So that minus 150 TKO KO would be something that could possibly intrigue me. You just got to hope that submission doesn't come, right? So that's more of a, it's almost like a flipping a coin, guys, because the submission could be live here. Obviously, that's why it tells you if you just take any sort of finish, it's minus 650. Right, so here you're kind of playing with odds. Now, if you want to look at Paul Craig's issues with his chin, you could look that way. 5 times he's been knocked out, guys. Not that durable, doesn't have a great chin. So keep that in mind, right? So there could be some value there with taking the finish. You expected the finish. I would be surprised if it goes 3 rounds. I would be fairly surprised. So if you like Bo, take him somehow to finish this fight. Araujo plus 225 versus Silva minus 275. Not a fight I'm too excited about to see on a main card of a pay-per-view, but it's a decent little fight to see. You could say maybe this is Silva's biggest test yet, but Araujo at 38. That's something to keep in mind here. I do believe Silva is the rightful favorite here. 2-1, I do believe is correct. You know, Silva will obviously have the wrestling and grappling advantage here, and that's why she's going to be favored. She should be able to get this fight down to the ground and maybe use her submission and grappling to her advantage here. We've seen Araujo taken down multiple times by lesser competition. So that's why we're seeing the favorite here in Silva. And also Silva's undefeated in the UFC, guys. Right? Araujo 38. You know, I have a hard time seeing the path for Araujo unless it's like a close decision win. And she was able to do better in the grappling and wrestling than expected. Right? 4 submission wins in her last 5 fights for Silva. So that is a possibility there. However, Araujo never been submitted and only been finished once. So she's been fairly durable in her career. She usually goes to decisions, close fights. So keep that in mind here. It'll be interesting to see if Silva can get that submission. That would be a big victory for her, in my opinion. You know, outcome is tough here. So if I had to bet this fight, I would try to fit maybe Silva in a two-fight parlay. Am I 100% confident Silva wins this fight? No. I do believe this is probably her toughest test yet. Araujo does have some, you know, sneaky good boxing, fairly good on the feet, and has been durable, hard to finish. So, you know, it's not a Silva guarantee win. I do like Silva to find a way just due to her takedowns over time. Even if it goes to decision, guys, I expected the takedowns to be the difference. So, yeah, I'll be looking at Silva here in some capacity this weekend. Rufi minus 1,000 versus Lon Top plus 600. Big price here, guys. I think it's overpriced. Obviously, there's some hype around Rufi, who fights out of the nerds in Brazil. Like I talked about at the top of this card with Pratas last week, who got the win. And, you know, Rufi's going to want to obviously try to carry that over here against a very winnable fight, right? Back-to-back losses for Lion Top. Gets poor competition as well, like Borishev, Padilla, right? So very winnable fight for Rufi. You know, now obviously, like I mentioned, I don't agree with this price at minus 1,000. Let's be honest here, right? He's 1-0 in the UFC, and his win versus against Jamie Malarkey, one of the most chinniest guys in the UFC, and he was able to find the finish in the first round. Don't get me wrong, I like Rufi, love how he fights, comes forward, heavy hands. A great striker. No wrestling that I've seen. Lolentop doesn't wrestle either. It's going to be a striker versus striker type of fight. You know, but I had this more like maybe minus 500. Right? This is just inflated. You know, I get it. Rufi could be, the next big thing. I love the camp he fights out of as well. The one thing I give Lion Top, he's never been finished in 18 fights, guys. Very durable South American fighter. Kind of like Cheeto. Very, very durable, right? He has been submitted a couple times. I do have to mention that. But we don't expect Rufy to get a submission here. I haven't seen it yet, I guess, in his career. He's a pure striker. Entertaining striker at that. You know, you expect this fight probably to go a couple rounds due to that durability of Lion Top. And if this fight does get into the deeper into third round, this could favor Lion Top due to probably have the durability advantage. We just haven't seen a ton from Rufy in deeper into fights, or at least getting hit and fighting in a close fight. So if Lion Top's able to somehow get the fight down there, we could see Rufy not be worth this price. Right? That's all I'm trying to say here. Right? Is Rufy worth minus 1,000 in his second UFC fight? We'll see, right? Time will tell. Obviously, I do believe he gets the win here. Outcome could be tough. I would lean the finish at some point. Again, though, we've never seen Lion Top get finished. But you could also say, has he fought someone this good? And the answer would be no. So, you're playing with fire there if you're trying to take Rufy by finish. But, he does have the tools to do so. He hits hard. He looks for finishes. That's how he fights. Right? So you're saying yourself, if you're going to take a Rufy by finish, that, it's because the opponents that the Peruvian's been fighting. Right? The 18 fights that he has, never been knocked out, but is it the opponents? Hard to tell, right? So that's why I'll be staying off this fight. But Rufy is the play for podcast purposes. That will do it. Some big favorites on this card. You got to get creative. Guys. At least on the main card, I'll have a couple plays in the prelims as well for clients. So get that card now. Expect a fairly big client card for the pay-per-views like it's always been for this year. 70%, over 70% on pay-per-view cards this year, 72% to be exact. Average line plus money, very happy with that. Let's continue the winning ways to end the year. Like I always say, guys, bet smart and know your limits. Enjoy UFC 209, 309.